Hello, this is Ahmed Umate. I will be presenting today the case Coca-Cola in Africa. So for this case, we have been working on this case from week one, progressively throughout the 6 weeks of the course, and I'm just going to present my findings today. Discuss more about the how can Coca-Cola leverage its um, its capabilities to be able to sustain the growth in Africa, the political impacts, the economic impacts, the legal impacts, the ethical and cultural considerations. And in detail, we'll see how Coca Cola can position itself today to serve a growing demand in Africa, a growing population, a population that has more income, disposable income that they can spend on soft drinks. So without wasting time, we'll start with how Coca-Cola leverages their resources and capabilities in Africa. So nowadays, Coca-Cola, what they did is they have been setting up distribution centers and have set more than 3,000 manual distribution centers within different communities in Africa. These centers, they are able to manufacture bottled soft drinks, and they are able to use local transportation services such as chariots to distribute it from one point to the other. They are also working on implementing bottling operations in South and East Africa to serve 12 countries, and those 12 countries have approximately 100 million population that will be serving, and these 100 million population will have more GDP than a country like China, for example. So this means that there is room for growth for Coca-Cola in these countries, and yeah, they are also, in addition to creating this large plant, they will also be training the workers on the best practices while operating, for example, the machines in the plant, throughout the production process, throughout the sales process, throughout the distribution process. Coca-Cola is also positioning itself. It wants to give greater choice, broader availability, and value to its African clients. So they have been operating or creating different brands. In, for example, in a country like Kenya, they give different flavors, different soft drinks, just to give their customers access to more different options when it comes to soft drinks. Um, Coca-Cola has also been using investments to show that they are committed to a long-term relationship with Africa. So they have been helping in the economic and social sectors. They have been investing billions just to show that. And again, as we discussed and as we read through the case in the book, Coca-Cola has around 2011 to 2014 has 2006 to 2011 have experienced a steady drop in their sales, and there's so much they can grow in US. There's so much market they can have in Asia. So now Africa is like the future for them. There's a huge potential in Africa. They are leading right now with 25% of the market share. Um, Also, they have the plant they built in Africa is one of the top 10 largest bottling plants worldwide. This means that they have been putting in significant investment. Again, it comes back to the long-term commitment that they're showing. They're getting ready, they're setting the groundwork, and they're making sure if there's an increase in population, there's an increase in GDP, there's an increase in disposable income, it means people will spend more on goods like soft drinks, for example. So how does Coca-Cola make sure they're getting ready? How do they leverage the resources that they have and their capabilities? So one, for example, they have copied a system they use in Latin America and Mexico. They like using store owners to for the distribution of their services. In return, what they do is they train these store owners on how to make money, how to save money. For example, they advise them simply, maybe for example, putting the drinks in ice maybe during midday just to save the amount of ice and still be able to sell cool drinks. Um, when these vendors are ready to build or purchase a house, they through different programs they assist these vendors to attain their objective. Also, they'll assist the vendors. Next, we're going to discuss about how Coca-Cola, still discussing about how Coca-Cola leverages their resources and capabilities. They will assist in providing access to clean water. They support women, they empower women by creating jobs, creating different programs, and they're promoting the well-being, or they promote the well-being of uh, individuals. So again, just as they copy the system in Mexico and in Latin America, they'll be making huge use of corner stores to sell more of their products. Because in Africa, again, one of the problems that we will see is them being able to access villages or remote areas easily, which is a big problem today, and it limits sales. So this is one way in which they are trying to make the people more aware of the products of Coca-Cola and making it more accessible for the people that are able and willing to consume the product. So next we'll talk about the political and legal issues to be investigated by Coca-Cola in Africa. So Coca-Cola has been increasing their investments, and we'll see it in a few slides. The last 10 years, they've made more than 5 billion investments and are planning to invest more than 12 to 17 billion investment in the upcoming 10 decades. That's because there have been an increase in political stability in various African countries. It's not like maybe 50 or 100 years ago where they had a lot of civil wars, independent wars, and so on. Right now, everything is more calm. All the countries are having better democracy in place. So Coca-Cola counts on this to continue. Hence, they are getting ready again to invest more. On the other hand, in a country like South Africa, whereby Coca-Cola Africa is headquartered, they have been planning, the government has proposed to impose a 20% tax on sugary drinks. And that has taken a hit on Coca-Cola sales because if there's an increased tax, it means maybe the price will increase and then it will automatically possibly lead to a decrease in purchases. So that's a political or legal issue that they're working on right now. And the motive for South African government to propose it because they believe sugar has a direct relationship with obesity, with like more than 70% of women being obese and 40% of men being obese. So they're trying to solve that, and they believe imposing high taxes on sugary drinks would be a first step to fight against obesity. Again, we come back. There's a decrease in civil wars. Not only there's an increase in political stability, but there's no more civil wars in countries. We've known, like for example, in a country like Rwanda in 1994, there was a genocide whereby one part of the country fought with the other part of the country, and these have been happening less and less in Africa. So that's a motivation for them to come and invest more. Um, and again, one good thing about Africa is that the market is different from the US in the fact that there is different backlash compared to the US. Um, Africans have African maybe are not yet aware, or they do not have the resources to fight Coca-Cola, as we've seen the scandal with Coca-Cola and the group of people that took them to court because they believe Coca-Cola had direct impact or help to promote obesity. So in Africa, they do not have this type of challenges when operating, so they can focus on creating strategies right now on how they will grow and how they'll increase their sales, how they'll make their products more accessible without necessarily facing huge amount of backlash. Still talking about the political and legal issues to be investigated. Um, Again, coming back to what we discussed in South Africa, the 20% tax that is imposed, the objective is to reduce the sugar intake and obesity. That's what the government is advancing as a logic for these tax purposes. And also now, African countries have been becoming more and more attractive for investment. They have been incentivizing companies to come and invest in their countries. There are more policies, there are more incentives, and Coca-Cola intends to take advantage of this to expand their operations in Africa. And again, they have been operating in Africa for long years, so they already have a good idea of how business is done there and a better idea on how to make things happen, how to deal with politicians, how to deal with the barriers they face throughout their implementation phase and the expansion phase. So next we'll talk about the economic implications to be investigated. Again, Coca-Cola today is one of the biggest investors in Africa. They have more than now 145 to 160 plants in Africa and employ more than 70,000 people. So that's a huge investment. Coca-Cola Um, they provide even more indirect labor or employment, as we'll discuss ahead. So there's a large client base in Africa right now compared to the US and Europe because, again, as we said, in the US and Europe, they have reached a point where there is so much they could grow. So they're already at the peak of their growth. They can't go as much, or they can generate more income from like substantial increase in sales. So compared to Africa, whereby there's an increasing population, there's 1.6 trillion GDP, and there's younger people growing population. There's a huge potential there, and again, they only have 29% of the market right now, so there's huge opportunity for growth. um, in Africa, they're also interested in investing now because the governments have been working on to improve in infrastructural development. So again, Coca-Cola, they have more than 160 plants. They hire more than 70,000 people directly, but they also created more than 1 million indirect jobs as a result. Um, they are also investing for the future of the company. How can they grow more? How can they ensure that in the next generation, in the next few years, they continue making more money to satisfy uh, stakeholders, to satisfy investors? Also, important thing and one important aspect is that they are also facing competition with Pepsi, which has approximately 18% of the market share in Africa right now, and are mainly dominating countries like Nigeria and Ghana. So, according to the CEO of Coca-Cola, this is a good thing because competition means Coca-Cola will be enticed to work more, to make better products, to make cheaper products for African countries. So, economically speaking, it's a good aspect to have competition. As we said, Coca-Cola is one of the biggest investors in Africa. They have invested about 5.5 billion in the last decade and plan to invest approximately 17 billion in the next decade. So Coca-Cola has approximately 27 billion investment strategy that they've put in place, and more than 12 to 17 billion will be in Africa. So it means that they perceive that the highest growth in revenue would be generated from Africa. Um, So the construction of new roads penetrating forests now and more remote areas means that more Coca-Cola products will be able to reach further places into the forest, into remote areas where they couldn't reach before. And this means that if the Coca-Cola products can reach those areas, there will be an increase in sales and increase in revenue and increase in profit as a result. Finally, we'll discuss about the ethical and cultural issues of Coca-Cola. So Coca-Cola, even though the backlash might not be as intense or as mediatized as in the US, they have been facing a few backlashes in Africa. Um, a group of activists say that Coca-Cola, they're depleting fresh waters. They have been accused of hurting local competitors because it's clear that when Coca-Cola comes to a place, they have the advantage of economies of scale. So what they can produce, because of the quantity they produce, makes it affordable for them to sell at a relatively lower price than competitors. So not everyone can sustain the competition, and eventually other businesses have to close, or they have to go out of business. Um, because of the taxes that have been increased and the fact that they're associating Coca-Cola directly to obesity amongst people, it has led to a drop of sales in South Africa, where their headquarters of Africa is located. Um, in the US, Coca-Cola again is associated to obesity, and in South Africa, but in most African countries, the primary concern is that people consume too few calories. So actually, Coca-Cola has a positive side on the fact that it can supplement the amount of calories needed by individuals on a daily, or to be consumed by an individual simply. Finally, Coca-Cola has also been accused of promoting harmful refrigeration, and they will most likely face less backlash in the US again because there's lack of media, there's more problems, there's a lot more to do in Africa. So Coca-Cola now today should focus more on the strategy on growing rather than mobilizing resources to fight against backlash. So just to conclude my research or my presentation today, I'll say Coca-Cola in Africa, they have had a great start. They have started investing in billions. They have started growing, creating jobs, creating infrastructure, manufacturing there, and it has both positive and negative impact as we discussed. But I could say that the positive or the advantages that come associated to the implantation of Coca-Cola in Africa outweighs um, the disadvantages. So we've seen that Coca-Cola is committed to long-term investment in Africa, and I believe that's something we should encourage. They have had a great start compared to competitors. Africa is growing very soon. More than half of the young population would be located in Africa, so it means many more people will work. It means many more people will consume. So it's a win-win partnership, in my opinion. And I believe Coca-Cola can do more research and do sensitize people, inform people on maybe how they could consume the product in a way that it doesn't make them become obese. They can inform the people about, provide more training to their vendors, and just make the whole process better so that there will be even more and more advantages in the long run. Um, so that's what I could come up. That's what I could learn from performing my research, and I hope this presentation will be very helpful to everyone who's going to listen to this. And if you have any questions, please feel free to comment, and I'll be more than happy to provide extra information required. Thank you so much for taking your time for watching this presentation, and I'll be waiting for questions to answer.